Hello, it is Friday, July 1st, 2022. I'm Chris Remo, and welcome back to the New York Times Crossword Daily Solve. It is a Friday puzzle today, so a themeless puzzle. And on top of that, it is the first day of a new month. So if you've been waiting for the month to tick over before you further investigated the Patreon campaign, perhaps now's your chance. And on that note, there's some relevant news on the benefactor front. We're welcoming a new supreme benefactor today to the Patreon campaign. So first, I would like to thank Laura Sexton, Alex, and, as always, the inestimable Hood Monster, the invaluable Timothy Mark, the inimitable Connor O'Neill, and, as well, from today, the infallible Cynthia Toms. So welcome, Cynthia, as a new supreme benefactor of the Patreon campaign, and thank you so much for your generous support in directly supporting this channel and making this series a sustainable part of my daily work. I do very much appreciate that, and I appreciate the contributions of everybody who has become part of the Patreon campaign. So thank you so much to everyone who is currently and has done so. It does mean a lot to me, so thank you. And welcome, Cynthia Toms. And with that, I have a mea culpa here. So the good news part of the video is over, and now we're on to the very dumb news, which is that I spent about 20 minutes solving this most of this crossword, and then realized the video was running and it was recording, but for some reason it wasn't properly capturing the window, and I just didn't. The game board, the crossword grid, and I just didn't realize that until I was deep into the puzzle solve. And so I didn't want to reset the timer because I think I've seen people say that if you do that, it will reset your streak. So I just deleted all of the entries I'd put in the grid, and I figured I would just walk back through the puzzle. It's regrettable, but I couldn't think of anything else to do. I didn't want to just start from the end. That seemed silly. So anyway, this is a Friday puzzle. It is a themeless crossword, of course, and it was constructed by Christina Iverson and Caitlin Reed, two experienced crossword constructors. Each of them has done about a dozen puzzles. I believe this is their first collaboration, and it was edited, as always, by Will Shorts. So now my game is paused. Let's continue, and you can see I'm starting off here at 21 minutes or so. So we're just going to have to roll through the puzzle, and I'm not going to sort of pretend I don't know things that I do now know because I previously solved the crossword, but there are cases such as this one where this really wasn't something I actually knew. It's needed to make naan and roti. Naan and roti are, of course, Indian flatbreads, and I've, in fact, made them myself, but I didn't know this vocabulary, and to be honest with you, I actually already can't remember what it was, so it's not any kind of act that I'm skipping that. Had a meal during pregnancy. This I did get right off the bat. This would be 8 for 2. 8 for 2 is something people often say. And I'm going to stop commenting on whether I got, these are things I got immediately earlier before, because that is of absolutely no relevance or interest to you, I suspect, and would just get annoying. So airlifted in could be flown in. Animal on the reverse side of a Canadian $2 coin. Let's look at the crosses there. Sun-Maid snack. So I know Sun-Maid as a brand name for raisins, but it occurs to me that, or did occur to me anyway, and continues to, that perhaps that refers to other dried fruits as well, and perhaps they also produce apricots. Besides, if you said, oh, well, it's a whole kettle of fish besides, it's a whole kettle of fish too. That's a terrible phrase. No one would ever say it that way. But anyway, besides means two, and that's straightforward enough. Oscar and Emmy nominated phrase, Elliot Page, wasn't familiar specifically with Elliot Page having been nominated for these awards, but it seemed entirely plausible, so I suspect that's the answer. Classic destination for honeymooners was not something that I really got, and I'm going to skip it for now as well. But the animal on the reverse side of a Canadian $2 coin with, starting with POL, certainly looks like polar bear, and I know it is. So, instruction in a game with dice. A dice game might tell you to roll again. What do we have here? One letting off steam. So the question mark here is serving as an indicator of a pun or a bit of wordplay. And so often when you encounter a pun, what that really means is you're going to read the phrase more literally, not less. And so in this case, one letting off steam is not someone who's been angry and is trying to calm down, but is rather a teapot that is literally letting steam out. A cry in a restaurant, you might yell, "Waiter." And like Byzantine architecture is ornate. And indeed, we use the phrase Byzantine now to refer to things that are obscure and incredible, sort of fractal-like in their complexity, and often in a sort of bureaucratic sense as well. A meter reader. So here we have another question mark, another pun indicator. And in this case, we're referring to somebody who reads poetic meter, the sort of metrical stresses of a line of poetry. So a poet. Nowheresville is, this I think is being used as an adjective to refer to a sort of Nowheresville town, a sort of podunk town, I think is what's going on there. And here we have what looks like our in Tours, but is actually referring to a location in France, so Tours. And the way you say our, one of the ways anyway, you say our in French, and in this case, a location is in France is being used to indicate that the answer will be in French, is notre for our. Canceled, I'm going to go through what I did originally, actually, because it was sort of interesting to me that it worked as well as it did. I saw canceled and I thought, oh, null. That sort of canceled is null. It's an invalid transaction or something. And then material for a prairie home is mud. And I thought, well, that works well, didn't it? But then I saw sit beside a driver. I know I said I wouldn't describe this, but this I just thought was very interesting. Sit beside a driver, I thought, well, that's definitely ride shotgun. So this can't be null. And if this isn't null, then that means this isn't mud, because canceled means no go, presumably. And so I just thought it was interesting that these crosses held up so well, because material for a prairie home, I thought that was mud because you could imagine a sort of adobe brick dwelling. And anyway, actually, I don't think I actually ended up solving this bit yet, so I don't technically know what it is. It looks like it could be sod, but anyway. Want a hand, need help. It's pretty straightforward. And here we have maintained. If you maintained something, you kept it. Courtside seats is going to end with an S. And mythical beings could be spirits or sprites, actually. Let's put an S here. Relatives of garters, so garter snakes and asps. I'm actually not specifically aware of how related garter snakes and asps are, but they're both snakes, so that's how that's going to go. Large sums of money informally could be gobs or gads or gobs of money. Word on some diplomas, summa cum laude. And what does that actually mean? I actually don't know that I know specifically what it means. It's sort of I don't know, above everyone or something like that. A rumpus could be a melee, a sort of brawl. And heated events, meets like a swim meet or a track meet. So certain heats, certain competitions of some kinds of, I don't know, racing sports, I guess, mainly. Large sums of money, informally G's, so there we go, as in thousands. So five G's, 5,000s. And classic sketch comedy show from the 60s and 70s. This is one I sort of know by reputation, but have never actually seen. So Laugh In. Is it maybe Rowan and Martin's Laugh In? Is that right? I'm not certain that's correct, but it's something like that. And again, it's something I've heard of, but have not seen. So mythical beings are not spirits, but rather sprites. Founding member of NWA familiarly would be Dre, and the familiarly is not referring to him with his full title of Dr. Dre. Wound up, if one is wound up, one is tense. And I suppose that could be used both metaphorically and literally as well. I suppose a wound up cord would be tense, but it's less definitionally crisp in that case. Sheets of rock, strata. So a single stratum of rock or several strata. And then, oh, right. So that does mean this is sod. I don't quite understand that. Material for a prairie home. Is it because you'd have sod outside because you'd be planting things? Or is it also used in the kind of adobe brick situation? I actually don't know. I'll have to find that out. Courtside seats is thrones, which is very clever. So courtside seats, of course, sounds like courtside at a sports match, but in fact, the court is referring to a royal court. So seats at the side of the royal court, and thrones for the on which the monarch sits. So there we have that. Not on your life looks like, oh hell no. Solving this in sort of a different order than I did before. One of the 6 reaction buttons for a text on an iPhone. So I don't remember all of the reaction buttons, but one of them is haha, so that must be it. And something to follow on social media. Yes, I remember getting this before and being surprised by hashtag, because does anyone really follow a hashtag on social media? That sounds like that would be a miserable experience to have the contents of honestly any hashtag just sort of flowing into your feed all day, every day. That would be awful. Anyway, maybe it's a thing people do. Many a nanny would be a goat, a nanny goat, a female goat, and snack that can be messy to eat is nachos with all of their potential accoutrement. So the classic destination for honeymooners is falls, I suppose, as in waterfalls. I don't know if this is referring to something in particular, like Niagara Falls, or if it's a more generic thing that people are said to do on their honeymoon, go to the falls. I don't really know what that in particular is suggesting, but that's fine. I'll live is exactly how I will end that pointless digression about falls. And then a kind of phase is an oral phase, which is something toddlers are said to go through. I think that's probably what that's referring to. Here we have enterprise that's folding, and this is origami, the Japanese paper folding art. And you might draw things with this. A magnet might literally draw things with magnetic force, might attract them in that sense. Museum guides are docents, the people who are stationed around museums and are able to answer questions. And made aware, alerted. Here we have a grocery bag full, which could be a bag full of flour, certainly something that comes in bags at the grocery store. And to take advantage of low APR, perhaps. APR, I think, stands for annualized percentage rate. And so if you were going to take advantage of lower interest rates, you could refinance a loan. Not something that is currently happening, interest rates falling, but does sometimes. Tribe known for ranching and oil and gas operations. So I don't, unlike the sort of hypothetical person in this clue, I don't specifically know this tribe for that, but I do know of the existence of the Ute tribe, so I suspect that's the answer. And if something is absolutely divine, it is to die for. And I think this is a very well-written clue because it really matches the answer precisely. You could imagine the same sort of person in the same sort of situation replying or exclaiming that is absolutely divine, that is absolutely to die for. They match very, very tightly. So that helps you kind of get the answer through that matching of tone. Here we have a result of branching out, could be literally a twig from the branch of a tree. So there's another question mark indicating a bit of punnery. And yes, here's what is needed to make naan and roti, which I had to get through this cross here, which is the Nobel Peace Prize winner from Ghana, who's Kofi Annan. And then that gives us atta, which I did already forget after getting it the first time earlier, which is apparently what we call the dough that is needed to make naan and roti, which I'll have to look that up because I wasn't familiar with that vocabulary. And was there anything else here that was crossed we've not yet seen? Oh, no, we hadn't seen this. Brought through the door is led in, so there we go. A furball, maybe, and Dutch export. Dutch export is Edam, cheese, which I think has already been in the crossword this week, in fact. And a furball, maybe, must be a cat. Which makes the bit of Christmas tree trimming an icicle, which I think is actually precisely the thing I was in the process of musing on when I lost when I realized I'd not been recording this puzzle because I don't quite understand what this means. A bit of Christmas tree trimming is an icicle. Does this mean a sort of a Christmas tree ornament fashioned to look like an icicle? I just don't quite know what this means. Or does it mean an icicle growing on a Christmas tree outside before it's been cut and brought indoors? I just don't know. Anyway, sorry. Song featuring up to 176 verses. Must be a psalm. It must be a psalm. And I'm not educated enough on this matter to know precisely the implications of that. By all means, in old parlance. I suspect this is sort of pray something. As I say, I didn't actually finish the puzzle before, so I don't know the end of this, but it's sort of pray do or pray so or something. It sounds kind of awkward, but that's my suspicion. Here we have blank my professors, which I think there's a website, Rate My Professors, so that must be it. Fathers in the Bible so here's fathers being used as a verb rather than a noun. So fathers, sires, begets. He begat a son. He fathered a son. Religious exodus is something like, is it Hegira? Actually, not sure. But I think it might end. I think there might be a G here. Give a little. I actually not sure. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not that, because I can't think of what would end with G there. Quit slangily. Quit slangily. Be off. It doesn't sound very slangily. Bag it. Is that a phrase? Trying to think of what could mean quit in 5 letters, but I'm not sure offhand. So let's keep going. Modern day brava. So very much suspect it's relevant that brava ends in an A rather than bravo, because that makes it specific to a woman. So you go girl. I guess you could consider a modern day brava. Let's check the crosses and see if that helps anything. This could be baguettes, actually. Is that a phrase? I don't think I've ever heard it before. I feel as though I'm sort of trying to invent a phrase, but maybe it actually does exist. What about this one? Nonsense is rot, total nonsense. Organization whose history is profiled in the 2015 bestseller To Make Men Free. Actually not sure about that, but then I'm interested to know. Harmonize could be attune, we're harmonized, we're attuned to one another. And genre prefix could be alt, as in alt rock, alternative rock, that kind of thing. So sedan in the U.S. sedan is to the U.S. as saloon is to the U.K. So a way to refer to a four-door sort of normal four-door car here in the U.K. So this really does look like pray something. Pray so, pray do. Pray do. By all means, pray do. That does seem right. Tagline. Tagline. Could mean tag the children's sort of schoolyard game. It could mean tag a price tag or a clothing tag, or I don't know what else, but I'm not sure offhand what this is. So if this were O, start of a choosing game. Start of a choosing game. So this will be a way that children choose things like eeny, meeny, miny, mo, or duck, duck, goose, maybe. 1, 2. What is this organization? All right, I don't know. Okay, we're actually getting kind of stuck now. Words before speak. Don't, but that's really a single word, even though it's a contraction of 2 words. So if this were pray do, we've now hit the point where my previous solve is useless to me. Well, I guess we already did sort of hit that a little bit earlier, but tagline, don't. The problem is this is an abbreviation, so there's no real problem with putting a letter there that wouldn't otherwise fit. do not iron clothes? This really could be bag it. Is that a thing that means quit? I'll be very pleased with myself if I kind of pluck that out of the air. One start of a choosing game. I don't know if that's one or on. I kind of suspect it's one. One. Oh, one potato. One potato, two potato, three potato, four. Boy, I've not heard that in decades. I think that is the start of the choosing game. So this actually could be Hegira. Is that? I think that's right. And then give a little. What does that mean? Give a little. Words before speak. Oh, so to speak. Oh, sag. Give a little, as in, right, sorry, as in, I don't know, a mattress will give a little, it will sag. There we go. Is this all correct? It is. Okay. So I'm glad I didn't bag it on this bag it answer, because bag it was the answer. And that's my sort of allocated quantity of saying the phrase bag it for, I would say, at least the year 2022. Okay, there we have it. There is my kind of semi-resolved puzzle from today. Strangely enough, it took me almost as long the second time as it did the first time. I guess that's what happens when you're explaining the clues. So let's see here. This was this part of the grid here I found very tricky. I suppose because in part we had. It can often be difficult when you have three phrases like this parallel, because they're not so unambiguous. The start of a choosing game, this is something that could plausibly be several different things, obviously, until you get enough crosses to rule out all the other possibilities. But also, I just didn't really remember one potato very well at all. And then do not iron, this certainly, tagline. I mean, that could be many, many, many things, depending on what sort of tag. But even just in the realms of clothing tags, presumably there are already several possibilities there. So often phrases can be very difficult for that reason. They have a lot of the sort of possibility space for them is very wide. And then pray do was difficult. It does sort of, I mean, for some reason, there was just something about it that sounded awkward to me. You think of pray tell and that kind of thing. Prithee, all of that. But pray do, there's just something about it that sounds slightly awkward, but I have no doubt it's a completely valid and acceptable phrase. Anyway, I've already spent twice as long on this as I usually do, so I am actually going to move on without further review of this puzzle. But I would say definitely a slightly tricky Friday puzzle. Let me know how you fared, as always. I'm always curious to know. And now we shall move on to the clues from yesterday's puzzle. How about that? So James Dickey explains the GRE, which is a test referenced in yesterday's puzzle, with which I was familiar in general, but not by its precise name, is the Graduate Record Examination. Definitely did not know that, so thank you, James Dickey. GTDP explains Christian Grey, who is the fictional character we encountered in yesterday's puzzle in 50 Across, was the billionaire from 50 Shades of Grey, the novel and film series, I suppose. So thank you, GTDP. And two people commented about what is arguably, and I would agree with this, a misclue regarding a scientific theory. So Lars Wilms explains, regarding 74 Across, scientific theories describe why a phenomenon happens, whereas scientific laws predict what will happen in a given situation. They're two separate things. A law in science is not more than a theory, as the clue seems to imply. And Life is Boss agrees, saying, I'm not a huge fan of 74 Across. Technically speaking, a law and a theory are two completely different things. The theory of evolution isn't lesser than a law. I think the best way of explaining this was how a physics teacher told it. The theory of gravity is about the concept of gravity and how matter impacts the space-time around it. On the other hand, the law of gravity tells you the math of how to calculate it. those are two very good, very concise ways to explain this difference. And a lot of very pointless arguments have been had because of the usage of the word theory in science in general. And so it's very good to get this clarified, and unfortunate that that was, I agree, misclued in the puzzle itself. Okay, Spencer Feathers says, regarding 26 down, Roto is a nickname for rotisserie, which is the scoring format of most fantasy baseball leagues. Never heard of this. It is named after the restaurant where the founders of the first fantasy baseball league, Rotisserie League Baseball, met for lunch the day they first played the game in 1980. Wow, that is amazing knowledge. That is very interesting. I never would have guessed. I would have assumed Roto being a scoring format would have something to do with a kind of rotation or something like that. But nope, not at all. I suppose it does indirectly. Rotisserie is, in fact, a rotational form of cooking. Heather Whaley points out regarding 22 across, to get on a boat is commonly called embarking, and to get off is disembarking. The term debark is not commonly used. Yes, that's fair enough. I think in my, I probably said debark in my blathering about deboating and debarking and whatever it was. I was incorrectly swirling around. Jason Grunow has a very excellent observation, which I did not notice solving the puzzle. I should have thought to look for this. In yesterday's puzzle, which was the cover your eyes theme, as you may recall, the constructor made a point not to include the letter I anywhere in the grid, as per their constructor notes. That is an amazing detail. Very well done to the constructor. That definitely helps the theme, because indeed that means all of the eyes in the grid were covered, not just the ones in the theme answers. There were no uncovered eyes. And finally, Michelle McBride Charpentier points out that I apparently yesterday forgot to mention that the crossword was edited, as always, by Will Shorts. So thank you very much for that. I was remiss in that omission. Okay, so that's that for yesterday's clues. That's that for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me for this strange, semi-resolved edition of the Daily Solve. I certainly hope this doesn't become the Daily Resolve. That will be quite a big imposition on my morning, but that will usually I sort of tend to make each category, each type of this mistake once, and then I learn from that particular type. I've previously had versions where the entire video wasn't recording. Wasn't true here. The video was recording. It just wasn't capturing that specific part of my screen. So anyway, now that I've made that mistake once, I probably won't make it again. That's usually how this tends to go. I hope so. Anyway, thank you for joining me. We'll be back tomorrow for the second of two themeless puzzles for the week, the Saturday puzzle. Hope you join me then, but until that point, please do have an excellent remainder of your Friday. Take care.